Well, good evening, everybody. It's Chris here from the Whistle Stop Cafe in Muir, Alberta. I got to say, my inbox has been taking a beating lately after Danielle Smith put out her address to the province, talking about an October 19th referendum or a series of referendum questions on issues such as immigration. And of course, the left and the opposition have gone totally insane, lost their minds, their hair turned blue and lit on fire, and they're screaming racism, which isn't true at all. But the other thing that's happening, and the reason why I'm coming on so late, is because people seem to be thinking that what we're getting is a referendum on independence on October 19th. That's just simply not true. To be very, very clear, no pun intended, the referendum on Alberta sovereignty, if it's to be done through or according to what the Clarity Act states, has to be a single question. It can't be muddled with a whole bunch of other questions. So the idea that there's going to be a referendum question on Alberta sovereignty on October 19th with all those other questions on the same ballot would mean that the federal government wouldn't even bother looking at that. And if you know me, you know that I really don't care what the federal government thinks, and I'm a will of the people kind of guy. But if we want to try and do things the polite way, the preferred way, Canada's preferred way in seceding from Confederation through the Clarity Act, the referendum question on independence has to be on its own. So what I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to play the video of Danielle Smith's address, and then I'm just going to respond to it kind of point by point. This will be great for some of you who haven't seen it yet. I just watched it on the way back from Lacombe tonight, and I actually wanted to start tweeting and stuff right away, but it's too bumpy because of the snow we got. Anyway, full disclosure, I'm not against Premier Smith at all. I do believe that she is doing what she said she was going to do, which is work on a strong Alberta within a united Canada. She hasn't been given an independence mandate by the people yet. She saw it in the UCP party membership for sure. It's estimated that about 75% of the party is independence-minded Albertans, but she hasn't gotten an independence mandate from Albertans yet. That's currently in progress with the Stay Free Alberta petition. So all of you folks who are signing that petition, you are asking for a referendum on independence, and that will eventually give Premier Smith a mandate to start considering talking about planning for independence. But until that happens, she's still under the old mandate of a united or a strong Alberta with a united Canada. So while I don't believe that the path she's outlining is a path for success for the province, I'm certainly not going to grind her gears too much about the path she's taking. But if the independence referendum question ends up on the same ballot as a bunch of other questions, I'll have a serious problem with that. Anyway, enough from me. Let's bring on Premier Smith. Apparently, this is the only way I can get her on an interview on my podcast because I'm suing her government, so she doesn't want to talk to me anymore, but that's okay. I still like her. Here we go. I think it's going to work. That's working.
Good evening, my fellow Albertans. With the new budget approaching and a shifting geopolitical landscape, I wanted to take some time to speak with you about how your provincial government plans to navigate these challenges while ensuring Alberta continues to prosper. I'd like to start with the good news. The Alberta economy is once again booming. We are leading the entire country in virtually every economic category, from job growth to investment to GDP to wages. The Energy Agreement, or MOU, signed with Ottawa last year, has eliminated both the destructive oil and gas production cap and the net zero power regulations. These two victories alone have had an immediate supercharging effect on our economy. In just the last few weeks, we have had tens of billions in new projects announced, including several new AI data centers, the expansion of TMX and other pipelines headed west and south, and a final investment decision by Dow Chemicals on their multi-billion-dollar plastics facility. And that's just the start. In the coming year, we expect tens of billions in data center and power generation announcements, oil production facility expansions, and approval from the federal government for a 1 million barrel a day pipeline to our west coast bound for Asian markets. These investments.
I just want to quickly point out that everything in that MOU is Alberta begging for a seat at the table. I don't believe Alberta should be begging any longer. And every item on that MOU is contingent on having a provincial government that demands those things, as our current government has. The NDP certainly wouldn't, or any other government probably that made well, they would be the only ones. But my point is, if we change government, those things can change. If the Liberal government, the federal Liberal government decides to change their mind on any of those things, we're stuck with it. So that's great that 2 of those, I think 9 things on the MOU got done, but there's still a whole bunch of things that haven't been. The pipelines that we're talking about, these mythical pipelines, we already have the Premier of British Columbia, David Eby, saying no. We have Indigenous leaders saying the answer will always be no, without even having a conversation or anything about it. And the Premier of Quebec has said no as well. So there are some things in here that I just don't see happening in the foreseeable future. Certainly not going to benefit probably many of us in the rest of our working careers. So a lot of this it's good talking points, but it doesn't really hold any weight for me. Let's continue.
Investments will create a massive number of new jobs for Albertans and will prime the pump, so to speak, for more investments in all sectors of the economy, from agriculture to tech to tourism to aviation and everything in between. It's an exciting time for our province. However, we have a very serious growth and budget challenge that must be addressed. In the year I became premier, the price of oil averaged $90 a barrel US. These strong oil prices saw our budget enjoy royalty revenue of over $25 billion and a surplus of around $12 billion, which we used to build up the Heritage Fund and pay down provincial debt. Since that time, however, the price of oil has fallen by over $30 a barrel to around $60. Each $1 drop in the price of oil means roughly $750 million less in oil royalties for the province. The result? What had been a $12 billion surplus in 2023 at $90 oil has turned into a large budget deficit at $60 oil. This is not the first crash in oil prices our province has faced, nor will it be the last. What is unique about the current oil price crash versus others in the past is that our economy today is more diversified, resilient, and still growing despite the drop in oil price. To put it bluntly, people across the country and around the world continue to want to move to our province in very large numbers to pursue job opportunities and prosperity. In the past, Canada's responsible immigration policies, such as those under Prime Minister Stephen Harper, constrained international immigration to manageable levels in Alberta so that our province could keep up with the growth of our economy and population. It also ensured that new immigrants primarily arrived here with highly valuable skills, a good job, and started contributing income taxes the moment they arrived. That is the story of the vast majority of our amazing new Canadians who arrived here during that time and are now citizens. These Albertans were and are a huge strength to our economy and provincial culture. And then came Justin Trudeau's disastrous open border immigration policies, which have caused an unprecedented strain on our healthcare, education, and other social programs. In just the last 5 years of Trudeau's tenure, Alberta grew by almost 600,000 people to more than 5 million.
Folks, I just want to say quickly, pay close attention to what Premier Smith is about to say over the next few minutes. She is about to make a case for Alberta independence.
Well, Ottawa throttled our most important job-creating industries and prioritized immigration away from economic migrants and instead focused on international students, temporary workers, and asylum seekers. Adding 600,000 people in 5 years is like adding half the city of Calgary or Edmonton in 5 years. Although sustainable immigration has always been an important part of our provincial growth model, throwing the doors wide open to anyone and everyone across the globe has flooded our classrooms, emergency rooms, and social support systems with far too many people, far too quickly.
I just saw a comment. Somebody pointed out she's talking about this stuff as all being Justin Trudeau's fault. Mark Carney is no different. I don't know if she's not talking about Mark Carney right now because, you know, negotiation tactic or something like that. But the new is the same as the old. Mark Carney, and Justin Trudeau, they have the same agenda. And as a matter of fact, Mark Carney was advising Justin Trudeau throughout a lot of that period. So it's not like we have a fresh new face that wants something different. It's the same guy with a different haircut.
As just one example, our student population has skyrocketed by more than 80,000 students in just the last 4 years, and more than 140,000 students now having English as their additional language. Is it any wonder that our teachers and students are struggling so much with classroom complexity and crowding? To sum up our budget challenge, low oil prices combined with an out-of-control federal immigration policies are together driving unsustainable budget deficits, not just here, but across the country. That's the problem. So what's the solution? Today, I want to share with you a three-part strategy to address this budget challenge without resorting to deep and disruptive cuts to core social services. The long-term strategy was announced last year. Our government has already initiated an investment plan to build the Alberta Heritage Fund to more than $250 billion by 2050. We are already ahead of schedule by reinvesting rather than spending interest earned in the fund each year and investing the bulk of large surpluses in years with high oil prices like we saw in 2023. Our government has already doubled the Heritage Fund from roughly...
I got to pause there for a second. Just to be clear, I'm not saying that Premier Smith is going to try and muddy the referendum question by having other questions on the ballot. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that the current referendum questions she's proposing are not independence questions. It's not an Alberta sovereignty question that are the questions she's proposing. And I'm also going to say to the people in the comment section that are denigrating immigrants, I have no problem with immigrants. Conservatives do not have problems with immigration. Conservatives have problems with unchecked immigration, with open border policies. Immigration is super important. When I was in my early years in the oil patch, I remember every year it was a new a group of truckers from a different country because we didn't have enough people. We needed people to come in and do the jobs, to do the work. And that's fantastic. That's not the problem. The people that come here to work hard for opportunity, who want to assimilate to our culture and share our values, are fantastic. The ones that want to come here and say down with the West and capitalism is evil and we want to tax other people's wealth, that's a problem for sure. So, just watch what you're saying in the comments section, because a lot of if you're throwing all immigrants in the same bucket and denigrating them, you're probably shooting yourself in the foot. And we wouldn't have been able to build this province without those people. So maybe think about that.
$16 billion in 2021 to almost $32 billion today. That's how quickly you can move the dial. We just have to stick with it. If future Alberta governments continue with this strategy through to 2050, the annual interest earned on the Heritage Fund each year will ensure we can weather any short-term dip in oil and gas prices and non-renewable resource revenue.
If the NDP hadn't gutted the Heritage Trust savings in their reign of terror over Alberta, we would have been weathering the storm right now probably pretty well, but bygones.
When we reach this goal, Alberta will be forever free from its over-reliance on oil and gas revenues. We need to stay the course. In addition to our long-term strategy, our government also has a medium-term strategy to double Alberta's oil and gas production and exports to more than 8 million barrels a day by 2035. Doing so will allow us to secure higher resource revenues for our budget, even when energy prices are lower like they are today. And when energy prices bump back up, our province will see large surpluses, which will help us to reach the $250 billion by 2050 Heritage Fund target that I just outlined. That is why our government...
Let's just break that down for a second. we're going to double our oil and gas production. That's fantastic. I've heard Premier Smith say that a number of times, but I want to point out that 90% plus of our oil exports currently go south. So to double our oil exports using east and west transport, like pipelines to Tidewater, would require us sending as much oil east and west as we're sending south. It doesn't sound like that's going to be an easy task, with British Columbia and First Nations and Quebec trying to block that at every turn. So it's just not something I'm going to hold my breath for.
Will continue to work diligently on implementing the energy agreement signed with Ottawa to build 1.3 million barrels per day of additional pipeline capacity to the West Coast, while also working with our great Canadian pipeline companies to expand pipeline capacity headed south. We will also continue to work on our agreement signed with Ontario to send hundreds of thousands of barrels of Alberta crude to their refineries and explore opportunities to unlock deepwater port access for our energy resources in the Maritimes, Quebec, and the Hudson's Bay. Alberta will double our pipeline capacity over the next 10 years, and our oil producers will grow and fill that pipe. We will not permit Alberta's and Canada's most valuable resource deposit, worth almost $10 trillion, to remain in the ground to the detriment of millions of Canadians. That's not going to happen. Now, having a medium and long-term plan is very important. However, what are we going to do about our budget situation in the short term? After all, we can't just sit by waiting and hoping for world oil prices to recover, nor can we trust the federal government to manage our immigration system in the best interests of Albertans. So here's the short-term plan. First off, our government will not be implementing drastic cuts to social services. The approved wage increases for our doctors, nurses, and teachers will remain in place so we can continue to attract the skilled professionals needed to catch up with our growth. Albertans have learned from experience that during times of low oil prices, the key is to limit increases in spending and focus it on building the schools, health facilities, roads, and other infrastructure needed to build a strong and diversified economy with a world-class standard of living. So instead of drastic cuts in upcoming budgets, we will instead be cutting unnecessary bureaucracy, improving efficiencies in program delivery, and prioritizing needs before wants as much as possible.
That's great.
We will continue to limit overall government spending increases to below inflation and population growth, implement more income testing for social programs so they are more financially sustainable, and critically, we will address head-on the challenge of out-of-control immigration levels that are overwhelming our core social services.
This is the case for Alberta independence right there, controlling immigration levels.
The changes we need to make to immigration are a significant departure from the status quo, and therefore I am seeking a referendum mandate from Albertans to implement them. On October 19th, 2026, we will hold a provincial referendum primarily focused on how Albertans want our government to deal with the issue of immigration, as well as steps we can take as a province to strengthen our constitutional and fiscal position within a united Canada. These were, far and away, the issues most strongly identified by Albertans during last year's Alberta Next panel, town halls, and online submissions. And in my view, it is time to act on them. The fact is, Alberta taxpayers can no longer be asked to continue to subsidize the entire country through equalization and federal transfers, permit the federal government to flood our borders with new arrivals, and then give free access to our most generous in the country social programs to anyone who moves here. This is not only grossly unfair to Alberta taxpayers, but also financially crippling and undercuts the quality of our healthcare, education, and other social services. The October 19th referendum will therefore include the following questions. Number one, do you support the government of Alberta taking increased control over immigration for the purpose of decreasing immigration to more sustainable levels, prioritizing economic migration, and ensuring Albertans have first priority to new employment opportunities?
That's a good thing, right? And if we did that, it would fix the problem, right? I'll wait for it in the comments.
Number two, do you support the government of Alberta introducing a law mandating only Canadian citizens, permanent residents, and individuals with an Alberta-approved immigration status will be eligible for provincially funded programs, such as health, education, and other social services?
Cue the racism remarks from Naheed Nenshi.
Number 3, assuming that all citizens and permanent residents continue to qualify for social support programs as they do now, do you support the government of Alberta introducing a law requiring all individuals with a non-permanent legal immigration status to be resident in Alberta for at least 12 months before qualifying for any provincially funded social support programs?
That shouldn't even be a referendum question. That just should be a responsible government thing. You know, when Premier Smith was, well, when she wasn't Premier, when Danielle Smith was campaigning, she was asked the question if she was going to govern on principle, and she said yes. Principle would state that you should do this thing, and it shouldn't need a referendum. You know, and of course, I hope everyone agrees with this when the question is asked of you. But it's something that we should our government should be doing anyway. That's what responsible conservatives do.
Number 4, assuming that all citizens and permanent residents continue to qualify for public health care and education as they do now, do you support the government of Alberta charging a reasonable fee or premium to individuals with a non-permanent immigration status living in Alberta for their and their families' use of the healthcare and education systems?
We all used to pay that. Do you remember when I moved to Alberta in 2000? We had to pay premiums for our healthcare, and it was Ralph Klein that got rid of those premiums.
Number 5, do you support the government of Alberta introducing a law requiring individuals to provide proof of citizenship, such as a passport, birth certificate, or citizenship card, to be eligible to vote in a provincial election?
So right now we have to provide identification, proof of residential address, not just proof of residence in Alberta, but proof of residential address, just to put our name on a petition to compel the government to put a referendum question to Albertans. So if a petition needs that much legitimacy, then shouldn't an election? This shouldn't be a referendum question. This should be something that we just do.
To strengthen Alberta's constitutional and fiscal position within a united Canada, we will also be asking you the following questions on the referendum ballot. Do you support the government of Alberta proactively working with other willing provinces to amend the Canadian Constitution in the following ways? A, have provincial governments and not the federal government select the justices appointed to provincial King's Bench and appeals courts.
That would be great, but...
B, abolish the unelected federal Senate.
That would also be fantastic, but...
C, allow provinces to opt out of federal programs intruding on provincial jurisdictions such as health, education, and social services without losing any of the associated federal funding for use in their own provincial social programs.
That would also be great, and we can already do that, but...
D, better protect provincial rights from federal interference by giving a province's laws dealing with provincial or shared constitutional areas of jurisdiction priority over federal laws when in conflict with one another.
And that's the way it should be as well.
I look forward to the debate on these critically important ideas.
So here's the but. That I used to think that we should open and amend the Constitution. Now, notwithstanding that the hurdles to open and amend the Constitution are huge, you need 7 out of 10 provinces representing 50% plus one of the population to agree, and Ontario and Quebec have 50% plus of the population already. So if you believe that Quebec and Ontario are going to agree to open the Constitution to give the West a better deal, I have a bridge to sell you. If we do open the Constitution, if you've seen the narrative coming out of Ontario, not so much Quebec, a little bit out of Eastern Canada, some from British Columbia, even surprisingly enough, about Alberta, and we open the Constitution, do you really think that it's going to go better for us? We have a Prime Minister, Mark Carney, who has mused about getting rid of the pesky notwithstanding clause so that the federal government would have more power over the provinces. We have a Prime Minister, Mark Carney, who in his book Values describes capitalism and energy as evil, and he mentions how the ordinary person needs to make sacrifices and curtail their rights to survive as a species. Do you really want the Constitution opened in that kind of climate? I believe if the Constitution gets opened, we'll get steamrolled by Eastern Canada again. It will get worse for us. We will lose our legal pathway to independence. We will probably lose the notwithstanding clause. And I doubt any of the things we want changed will get changed. Do you really think that they're going to abolish the Senate? No, they won't. One of the hurdles for opening and amending the Constitution is a majority vote by the Senate. Another hurdle is majority of the Supreme Court has to agree. And they're appointed by the Liberal government. And Quebec has a veto. So the likelihood of the Constitution being open and amended is slim to none. And the likelihood of things getting worse if it was opened successfully and amended successfully is very high. Very, very high. So this in itself should tell you that Alberta must be independent. If we want to fix these things, if we want to get out from under those from behind those roadblocks, we have to be independent. There is actually no other way. And she mentions taking control of immigration. Alberta does have a constitutional shared jurisdiction on immigration with the federal government. We're supposed to be working on it together. Alberta should have an Alberta Immigration Department. Quebec has one. In a recent podcast I did with my friend Benoit Trudeau, he mentioned that in Quebec, if you immigrate to Quebec, you have to learn to speak French, you have to align with Quebec's values, you have to assimilate into their culture. And if you don't want to do that, just don't live there. Simple. So we could already have an immigration department. The problem is, it's not going to do a damn thing to fix the flood of people into our province. We cannot do anything about it. Oh, but wait, Chris, we'll have an immigration department. Yes, we can. Wrong, we can't. Because the rest of the provinces won't. Ontario, Eastern Canada, British Columbia will still continue to accept millions of immigrants. Not all of them want to come here for the right reasons. And once they get Canadian citizenship, they have mobility rights and they can go anywhere they want. So we can't do anything about it. These things sound great, but they are actually a rock solid case for Alberta independence. You want to do something about unchecked immigration into our province that's flooding our services and making it difficult for everybody, including new Canadians, new immigrants, to survive here and thrive. We have to take control of immigration. And the only way to take true control of immigration is to have our own borders, which means we need to be an independent nation of Alberta. This address is probably the most public acclamation for Alberta independence that I've seen from Premier Smith in her entire tenure as Premier. So I love it. It's absolutely fantastic. And I'm not saying these things to, I'm not trying to take a dig at her or anything like that. I'm just pointing out that what she wants to do, if she really wants to do it, there's only one way to do it. So what does that mean for me and you? Well, we need to keep working hard, educating Albertans. We need to build that petition that we're currently canvassing for to the 1 million mark so that we can send a strong signal to Premier Smith that we support her ideas, but we know that there's only one way to do it. That's what I'm saying here. I support what she's saying. I agree that we need to do the things that she's saying or that she's asking if we want to do. I just know that there's only one way to do it. Let's finish. I think that's almost it for her. Let's see what she has to say.
And to receive your decision on the questions outlined so that our government can get to work on implementing an immigration policy that puts the needs of Albertans first, as well as constitutional reforms needed to make Alberta stronger and more sovereign within a united Canada. In closing, I want you to know how confident I am in the judgment of Albertans on these and other delicate issues. Although there are some politicians and commentators that fear direct democracy, such as referendums, I do not. I trust the judgment of Albertans. I know that as a province, we will thoughtfully ponder, debate, and ultimately come to a wise decision on these questions that will benefit our families and our fellow Albertans for generations, just as we've always done. May our beautiful province forever remain strong and free. Thank you and good night.
There we go. For the record, I will say I believe that Danielle Smith is the best premier that this province has ever had. Ralph was pretty good too. I'm not against her at all. At all. I just can read between the lines, and I know exactly what Alberta needs to do to accomplish those things. I wish that, things could be exactly the way I want, and she would just immediately do all of those things. But I have a feeling, well, I know that there's a lot of things I don't know. Just like Danielle Smith, there was a lot of things she didn't know before she got premiership. At a premier's dinner in Bonnyville, I heard her say something like, I thought I could just get in and within 6 months we'd have everything fixed, but it's all just so broken, like implying that it can't be fixed. And I agree with her, except I don't believe it's broken. I believe it's operating exactly as it was intended to operate. In my journey into the Constitution and legislation and all those things that no one in their right mind ever reads, although we should, it's the law that governs us. I've come to the conclusion that this is the way it's supposed to be. The East always wanted to be the center of power in the country. They wanted to make sure that they could control the destiny and the outcome for the whole country. And things were set up that way. And it's been that way ever since. We're starting to feel that big time now as this, dare I say, agenda is accelerating, as our governments are being more open with the things they want to do to us that we don't agree with, like curtailing our rights so that we survive. The ordinary person has to have their rights set aside or restricted to survive. So 15-minute cities, only eat meat on 1 day a week, those types of things. It sounds conspiratorial until you look back over the last few years and you realize that these are exactly the things that are happening. Dr. Michael Wagner describes two Canadas, the old Canada and the new Canada. So it's pre and post Pierre Elliott Trudeau. Many of you don't know this, but if you dig into the history of how the Constitution Act 1982, which includes the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, came to be, you'll find that 8 of the provinces didn't agree to that in the first place. And the only reason, they were called the Group of 8, the only reason they actually signed and agreed to patriate that version of the Constitution, which was based on the British North America Act of 1867, the only reason they did that was because they wrote in the notwithstanding clause, which means that federal law can operate unless the provinces say it doesn't have standing, which is what Premier Smith has had to do on a number of occasions to make sure that the will of Albertans is reflected in our governance and in our laws. I wish it could be changed. I wish that I could go back to 2023 when I was the guy that put up my hand when Dr. Dennis Modry said, how many people here would like to have a referendum on independence and have it be the leverage we need to make the constitutional amendments that we need to make? I always wanted that path because I love this country and I love the feeling of being a Canadian. But when I realized that that wasn't possible, I had to set aside my emotions over it and I had to face reality. If I want to achieve the future that I want for me and for my kids and for my grandkids, the only way to do it is be an independent nation. If you want to do the things that Premier Smith is talking about and you're excited about this referendum, these referenda questions that she's going to put to the people of Alberta on October 19th on things like immigration and that, if you're excited about that stuff, use that and use that to motivate you to do something that's actually going to make those changes. And I'm terribly sorry, folks, to tell you this, but those referenda and opening the Constitution are not going to achieve the outcomes that you want. People have been recently telling me that I'm crazy. Not recently. That's been happening for quite a while, actually. Has it? It has. Because I just announced today that we are going to do 200 events across Alberta in 186 days, starting on April 15th, having conversations with Albertans about these issues. We're going to talk about these things. We'll debate these things. We'll answer your questions as best we can. And we want to be ready when these questions are put to the people of Alberta. Now, back to the question of the referendum on independence. Many of you have signed a petition to compel the provincial government to put a referendum question to the people of Alberta that says, do you agree that Alberta should, oh my goodness, what's the question? Do you agree that Alberta should cease to be a province of Canada and become an independent state? That's the only referendum question that I want to see. The only one. I don't want any other ones. All of those other referendum questions are completely and utterly useless in achieving the outcomes we want and we need. Maybe Premier Smith knows this, but she's still doing what she said she would do and fulfilling the mandate she was given when she was elected. Kudos to her for that. That means we have to continue to do our job and change the mandate. So when you sign that petition, when you have a conversation with your friends and your neighbors or your enemies, and you encourage them to sign that petition to compel a referendum on Alberta independence, you're building that mandate that will give Premier Smith the motivation to start thinking about independence seriously and start talking about it seriously as well. She's already done, I believe, as best a job she can, trying to quell the anger from federalists towards Alberta sovereigntists, by saying, like, we're not bad people. We just care about this province and we have a different perspective. Well, I'm going to spend the next, up until October, sharing my perspective and having discussions and bringing people to our side. That's what we got to do. We don't have to lash out at our politicians. We don't have to start new political parties. We don't have to do any of that stuff. All we have to do is continue having the discussions and educate Albertans as to how we achieve the outcome they want. Premier Smith just gave us a fantastic advertisement for Alberta independence. And I wouldn't have been able to say that had I not been educated on some of these things in the past by people like Dr. Dennis Modry and my friend and lawyer Jeff Rath and my friend Leighton Gray, Tanner Naday, and many, many others, Dr. Michael Wagner. If I hadn't learned from them and from doing that thing that nobody does anymore, which is reading, I might believe that what Premier Smith is saying she wants to do would fix the problems. Well, I know it won't. And the difference for me was education. That's why we're spending all that time and effort doing 200 events across this province over the next few months. We need to educate Albertans, and we need to be ready for these questions. I really hope that we have a referendum on independence that's completely 100% separate from these referendum questions that are coming up. If we don't, it will probably make the referendum question on Alberta independence fail a Supreme Court decision, I would imagine. I think that these small referendum questions that are being put to us are probably specifically designed to do exactly what Premier Smith said she was going to do, and that was prevent referendum on Alberta independence. She wants a united Canada. And no. Someone said two-faced Danny. Absolutely not. She's doing exactly what she said she was going to do. If she did anything else, then you could call her that, but she's not. She's doing exactly what she said she was going to do. It's our job, because we're not victims, it's our job to change what we're doing to change the mandate. And that means build the signatures, hit the 1 million mark, make it so that it is unmistakable that Albertans know what we need and we're going to pursue it. And she'll come around, because that's what she's done every single time. Anyway, thank you for spending these few minutes with me. I'm going to get to bed because I have a big day planning. Well, not really planning, but a big day being nervous about speaking in Viking, Alberta tomorrow at the Viking Community Hall, 7 p.m. Be there or don't be square. Just be there. And we're going to continue planning our upcoming meetings. We have another one in Lacombe on February 23rd. There's a full roster of speakers at that one, which is great because Dr. Dwayne Bratt is going to be across the street hosting a meeting on misinformation about Alberta independence. So you could feel free to attend that one as well if you want and say your piece there. But because we have such a full roster over across the street, it's probably going to be likely that one or two of us will be able to wander over there and maybe have a discussion with a few people. And that's what it's all about, having the conversations. We have more meetings in the near future in Smoky Lake, Strathmore. Shane, if you're in the comments, put some more up there. But I saw we had March 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th or something like that booked for events. So watch the Facebook page for that. And please attend as many as you can and have those conversations. Every event that we do gets us one step closer to helping Albertans make the best decision. So, even if you attended an event before, just keep going. Have conversations with people, learn something new. Catch Dr. Michael Wagner or my friend Tanner today or Dr. Modry and have a conversation with them and give them your tough questions. You'll come out of those meetings learning something new every time. And that will equip you to best serve your nation, to best serve your nation, the new nation of Alberta, and be civically engaged and change people's minds. Because in a democracy, all you have to do is bring more people with you than the other guy does, and you win. So let's bring more people with us to a free, independent, and prosperous Alberta. Have a great night, everyone. Do you want to see the Stumpy outro? Is that you enjoy that? All right, I'll put it up. Here she is. Meow. Premier Smith, I really appreciate your efforts. At every turn, you help show us that Alberta independence is necessary and inevitable.